Shalom. This is Hadassah Bat Saiwan returning with part 5 of Yawam HaShabath, and we're going to look at the day of rest, what it's all about. So what is Yawam HaShabath? We looked at these points from the very beginning, and we have rested now on point number 4. Yawam HaShabath is a day of rest and refreshing. We're talking about not just physical rest and physical refreshing, but spiritual rest and spiritual refreshing. No work of any kind is to be done on this day. So we're going to look at the first scripture, HaMashayach, which is Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 15. In those days saw I in Yahawada some treading wine presses on HaShabath, and bringing in sheaves, and laden asses, as also wine, grapes, and figs, and all manner of burdens, which they brought into Jerusalem, on Yawam HaShabath. And I testified against them in the day wherein they sold victuals. No wonder the Father got angry with our forefathers, and us too. 6 days in the week we have to do all the work we need to do. But the one day that He has commanded us to keep, the one holy day that we were supposed to keep, we are still supposed to keep throughout our generations. They didn't want to keep it. All the things He said not to do, they were doing. They were lading asses, bringing in the sheaves. They were out harvesting, treading the wine presses. They were making wine, stomping on grapes. That's how they used to do it back in those days. Collecting the grapes and the figs and all manner of burdens they were bringing in. And here's the worst part of it all. They were bringing it into Jerusalem, the city of worship, to sell. They figured, well, everyone's coming in to offer their sacrifices and to celebrate the Shabbat. So we're going to have a whole bunch of people here. Let's use this opportunity to sell our stuff. It's about money. It wasn't about the Most High. And it's not how it is with us today. It's about money, not the Most High. Verse 16. There dwelt men of Sarai, Tyre, which is Syria, meaning distress, also therein, who brought fish and all manner of weir, and sold on HaShabath unto the children of Yahawada in Jerusalem. So we have these people from Syria bringing in their fish, knowing full well that anyone that dare to be in the city of worship on HaShabath, they have to observe the same law as the children of Yashrael. There's not one law for the foreigner and another law for the children of Yashrael. One law covers everyone. But they were bringing their fish to sell to the children of Yahawada in the city on HaShabath. Verse 17, then I contended with the nobles of Yahawada, the leaders, the elders of Yahawada. That's Judah, by the way. And said unto them, what evil thing is this that you do and profane Yawam HaShabath? You're defiling the holy day. What's this evil you're doing? You're permitting this to happen. You're the elders. You're the leaders. You're the one that's supposed to be instructing the children of Yasharal not to do these things. But you're tolerating it because you're probably getting a kickback somewhere. Verse 18. Did not your fathers do this, and did not our Alahayam, bring all this evil upon us and upon this city? Have you not learnt your lesson from our forefathers? He is speaking back then. Look at us now. We still haven't learnt. We still haven't seen the errors of our forefathers' ways, therefore see ours. We're still repeating the same cycle of evilness. The same cycle of wickedness and rebellion. We're continuously putting it out there before the Father, transgressing his laws. And coming up with all manner of excuses and reasons why we don't need to do these things anymore. Because that's old covenant. Well, because you don't have any understanding about what a covenant is. Because if you knew what a covenant is, then you will know that the covenant never changed. The covenant itself has not changed. And I cover this in great detail in a lesson called Our Covenant. You need to understand what the word covenant means. It has nothing to do with the rituals. That was a small part of it because the blood from the animals helped to establish the covenant between our forefathers and Alahayam. That's all it is. The only thing that was changed about the covenant is the blood. So you can't say, oh, it's this old covenant. The commandments are the old covenant. That's what the Gentiles have taught you. And you graciously accept it because it fits in with your lifestyle. You do everything that the Gentiles tell you to do and their gods tell you to do, but you do not do what the Most High has been telling us to do from day one. Just go back and read the Bible for yourself and you'll find out all the things that he wants us to do. But the Gentiles are out there teaching in the churches that these things, they don't matter to us. They're only for those people in our land who are not our people. They're not the real people in our land. They're not going to tell you who the real people are, although a lot of them do know who the real people are. A lot of them that come up in the seminary schools have been taught about who the real children of Yasharal is or are. They know, but they've been sworn to secrecy, to not speak this thing, because it will bring such a rippling effect that would devastate their kingdom. So they've been sworn to secrecy. And let me tell you something. Some of them are our brethren that have been sworn to secrecy to keep it away from us, the people at large. You think that they don't know? They got our books. They've been hiding the truth from us from generation to generation. But you see, we brought that upon ourselves because of look at what our forefathers were doing and permitting foreigners to do in our land. Defiling our Shabbath. And you wonder why we are always suffering, why people hate us? We need to return. When we return to the Father and return to the things that He loves and do the things that He loves, then His protection will cover us. And the fear that people once had because of us will return. But right now, we're a tail. We're their tail. We have no power. And we have no say in anything. And until we come back to the Most High in covenant with him, we will continue be the tail. Verse 19. Verse 19. And it came to pass that when the gates of Jerusalem began to be dark before HaShabath, I commanded that the gates should be shut. He was one man to stand on righteousness, to say enough is enough. I'm going to defend the Shabbath, even if it means that I will pick up my sword and start slaughtering some of these people. And you know what? The Most High would have blessed him if he did it. And charged that they should not be opened till after HaShabath, and some of my servants set I at the gates, that there should be no burden be brought in on Yawam HaShabath. And this was the gate leading into the temple area. All right. So the merchants and sellers of all kind of ware lodge outside Jerusalem once or twice. Well, they're figuring, well, we can't come in, but we'll hang out outside. We'll catch the people on their way out. On the way in and on their way out. They started to hang out outside and set up their victuals outside. All their wares and stuff that they were selling. They set it up outside the gates. Verse 21, then I testified against them and said unto them, why do you lodge about the wall? Why are you out here? You're not supposed to be out here. If you do so again, I will lay hands on you. You think he was talking about fist fight? No, he was talking about picking up his sword and slaughtering them. Him and his servants with him. And from that time forth came they no more on HaShabath. It takes one man to stand for righteousness, and the Most High would empower him and the words that come from his mouth to make it happen. Verse 22, and I commanded Halayawam, which means the Levites, that they should cleanse themselves and that they should come and keep the gates to sanctify Yawam HaShabath. Remember me, O Alahai, my Alahayam, concerning this also, and spare me according to the greatness of your mercy. He had to set up guards at the gate to enforce the commandment about keeping HaShabath holy. Should that have been so? No. For us on a personal level, we ought to know that the day of Shabbat is a holy day, and all the things that we can do and cannot do is only for one day. One day. The rest of the week is ours. And if we know this on a personal level, then as a congregation, we will know this. So therefore, there will be no need to police the Shabbat day, to keep guards at the gate, to stop people from doing the things that they're not supposed to be doing. But it had to be done this way because these people were rebelling. Our people are some of the stubbornest and some of the most rebellious people. My. After all the good things that he has done for us, for them, not even for us, because we're now reaping the product of their rebellion nature, of what they've done. We were born in slavery. We were born captives. We've never known what freedom is. We've never known what freedom is. We will soon. We've never seen our land. When I said seen, because I visited the land, but in her glory days when we were the people in the land. So many things that we've been deprived of because of our forefathers. And as deprived as we are, many of us are still going in the ways of our forefathers. The definition of insanity. We're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Over and over again, we've rebelled, and over again, we've been enslaved and tortured and persecuted and cursed. And we think by continuing doing the same thing, somehow we will eventually become blessed. Now, that is the definition of insanity. You need to stop doing the things that we always do. Our forefathers have done. They've done it to the hilt. And they died doing it. It's time that we pull back and reflect. Okay, they went left. I'm going to go right. Whatever my forefathers have done, I'm going to do the opposite. No. You want to continue on because the lure of sin, the lure of lust, greed, for mammon calls you. It calls you and you answer. You need to start answering that call. Shamawath, the book of Exodus, chapter 35, verse 1. And Masha gathered all the congregation of Habanah Yashrael, the children of Yashrael, together, and said unto them, These are the words which Yahweh have commanded that you should do them. So this is refreshing the law, the commandment that the Most High had given to our forefathers in the wilderness. 6 days shall work be done, but on the 7th day there shall be to you a holy Shabbath, rest to Yahweh. Whosoever does work therein shall be put to death. Now back in those days, Masha days, they were stoned if they were caught working. Stoned to death. Verse 3, you shall kindle no fire throughout your habitations upon Yawam HaShabath. And in those days, they didn't have stoves. They had to make a fire using wood. So in order to get the wood, they had to go hunting for wood all over the place. Sometimes they get a big piece of log, or maybe they have to cut a tree down. All of that is work. Once you cut the tree down, then you have to chop it up into small pieces so you can use it as firewood. All of that calls for work. Then now you have to start a fire. And by that time, you will be very tired. So the whole idea about the Shabbat is to be at rest. So you have just defeated the purpose of Shabbat, because now you're tired. And he put a consequence before the people that if they broke the Shabbat, if they did any manner of work or done any of the things that he said not to do, they were to be stoned to death. Because he knew what kind of people they were. They were rebellious people. And until you give them a consequence for their actions, they're not going to obey. And even when he did give them the consequence, they still disobeyed. A man still went out and gathered sticks. And then he was stoned to death. That just shows you the mind of our people. Oh, well, no one's going to see me. Or I'm just going to go grab that stick quick. No, I don't think he's going to really kill me to set a fire. He said it. And it happened. Jeremiah, chapter 17, verse 19. Thus saith Yahweh unto me, go and stand in the gate of the children of the people. He's talking about Yashrael. whereby the kings of Yahweh come in, and by the which they go out. And in all the gates of Jerusalem, here we go again. Here we go again. And say unto them, hear you the word of Yahweh, you kings, meaning the leaders of Yahweh, and all Yahweh, and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem that enter in by these gates. Verse 21. Thus says Yahweh, take heed to yourselves, and bear no burden on Yawam HaShabath, nor bring it in by the gates of Jerusalem. Neither carry forth a burden out of your houses on Yawam HaShabath. Neither do you any work, but hallow you Yawam HaShabath, as I commanded your fathers. Verse 23. But they obeyed not. Is that something to be surprised at? No, this is a repeat pattern of our people. Whether in the past or in the present, but definitely not the future. Not the future. This is a repeated pattern of our people. Disobedience, rebellion, which leads to transgression and iniquity. But they obeyed not, verse 23, neither inclined their ear, they did not want to listen, but made their necks stiff, they became stubborn. This is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it. That's rebellion. All right? That they might not hear nor receive instruction. That's so typical of our people. You could be telling them the truth. They don't want to hear the truth, but you come with some fancy lie. And they'll listen to it. That's why there are a lot of people out there teaching all these strange doctrines. And our people are sucking it up like a dry old sponge. Sucking it all up. And calling it our books. Gravitating towards these pagan books. These Freemason books and calling it our books. And what these books are doing is teaching you to break the commandments. And people have no problem embracing these books because it goes hand in hand with the lifestyle that they're already living and they want to keep. A lifestyle that is totally against the Most High and His command for us to be a holy people. They're living unholy lives, eating and drinking whatever they want to eat and drink, sleeping around, even with the same gender, doing all manner of filthiness in the bedroom with whomever, even if it's their wife or husband. Profaning the Shabbat by going to work. Oh, I have to work so that I can pay my mortgage or pay my rent. He understands. All these things they're doing, and they don't mind. They don't have a problem with it. And that's why they will gravitate towards any other doctrine but the true doctrine. Many will listen to this message and sniff at it, suck their teeth, roll their eyes. But that's okay. You're not doing it to me. You're doing it to the Most High, because this is His word. I'm not reading my word. This is His word according to His book that He has sent to us, written by His prophets. So if you want to roll your eyes, you're doing it at Him. And at the end of the day, He will deal with you. It's a bitter pill to swallow. A bitter pill. Truth is a bitter pill to swallow. Let's move on. Verse 24. And it shall come to pass, if you diligently hearken unto me, says Yahweh, to bring in no burden through the gates of this city on Yawam HaShabath, but hallow, make it holy, make holy Yawam HaShabath, to do no work therein. Then shall there enter into the gates of this city kings and princes sitting upon the throne of Dawad, riding in chariots and on horses, they and their princes, the men of Yahweh and the inhabitants of Yerushalayim, and this city shall remain forever. In other words, I'm going to bless you. If you keep my Shabbat and you make it a holy day, I'm going to bless you. That's what he's saying in a nutshell. And that's what he's saying to us now. If you keep Shabbat the way how I am instructing you to do it, just go to my book, go to my word. Don't worry about what those other people are doing. Shabbat is not on Saturdays. Every month, every year, the Shabbat changes. There's only a couple times a year that the Shabbat falls on Friday evening to Saturday evening. A couple times a year. The other times, you're calling an unholy day a holy day, and you're still profaning the Shabbat. You're still following the Gregorian calendar, the same Roman people that have us under bondage even now. And you're still upholding their calendar. And still calling the Most High by their gods. The gods that they have given to us in slavery. The Lord God, the God Lord, the Jesus Christ, and all the different, those names were given to us in slavery. Because those are the names and titles of their gods. And we're not letting go of their gods. Heaven forbid, we have to let go of them. We wouldn't know where else to go. Because you are not really in a relationship with the Most High. You are in relationship with their gods still. And to let go of their gods would leave you with nothing because you have no relationship. You are not in relationship. When you become in relationship, when you come into relationship is what I'm trying to say for the third time. When you come into relationship for the fourth time, you will know him by his name. You know why? He will reveal it to you. You cannot be in relationship with someone if you don't know their name or their title. How is that even remotely possible? You meet someone, the first thing you do, you introduce yourself. And after the introduction, then you learn about the person by talking to them, communicating with them. But a lot of people out there are in communication with someone else and calling it the Most High. And they think by calling him by all these other fancy names, they may have removed the Jesus Christ, but they call him by these other fancy names, like Yeshua. That's not the name of our Savior. That's the name of the Savior of the Jewish people up there in our land. Ish people. That's the names. Those are the names and titles of their gods, Elohim. And when you do a deeper research, you're going to find out that those names are rooted in the Canaanite gods. Yahweh is a Canaanite god. And you feel proud because Hebrew is your language. Hebrew is not your language. I've said this many times and I'll keep repeating it because someone might be watching this for the first time. But Hebrew is not our language. Our language was changed, was hidden. They couldn't destroy it because it's a holy language. So they decided to hide it in Hebrew. You need to know the alphabet of the Hebrew to know the alphabet of our language. And when you know our language, then you'll know the names and titles of the Most High. And I've given it to you. Each time I do a video, I give you the names. But you are not in relationship if you're calling him by any other name. You're profaning his name. You're making his name of null effect. And you wonder why we're still going through curses. Why we're still under heavy burden, heavy oppression. Every time you look around, somebody get shot and this person get, treated or cursed at. But these white people, suddenly the racism is on the rise again. They're cursing us out and calling us all manner of names. You know why? Because we're still stubborn and we're still stiff-necked. We're still stiff-necked. And yes, we do act like pigs. Right? And you wonder why. Well, you don't need to wonder anymore. Allow me to tell you why. Because we're still living in rebellion against the Most High. And that's why a lot of our people are going to be destroyed. A lot of them. A lot of them. It's a sad state of affairs, but it will happen. Be prepared that the majority of your family, if one other person beside yourself make it out of your family, that's a lot. That is a lot. Okay. And he gave them promise. He said, if you will hallow my day, I will bless you. End of story. So if you're not walking in his blessings, and don't tell me, oh, you got a raise at your job, so that's a blessing of the Most High. That's not a blessing of the Most High. All right? The devil can cause you to get a raise too. You will know when the Most High is blessing you. And he doesn't need to give you more money in order for you to be blessed. All right? We always look at the natural things. And if we get more stuff, that means we're being blessed. That's what the church have been pumping into us from day one. The more things you have, the more blessed you are of God. Isn't that what they've taught us? When you tithe to them, you're tithing to God, and he will cause you to have an increase. Has that ever happened? Never happened. Especially for our people. Not talking about the Gentiles, it will happen for them. But it would never happen for Israel, Yashrael, for the people of Yashrael. It would never happen to us. And the more we tithe to these ministries, the worse it gets. If it's not sickness or disease, there are problems in your relationship with your husband, with your children. Sheer torment. Something goes wrong. And sometimes that one thing has like arms, like an octopus. More things start to happen. That is the result of disobeying the Most High. He didn't bring this upon you, you brought it upon yourself. Because he said to you, if you will obey me, these things will not come upon you. The curses that I have released against Matzarayim is still around. He never took them away. He never took the curses away. But the curses are there to come against us now, his people, when we disobey him. All right, verse 26. And they shall come from the cities of Yahweh, and from the places about Yerushalayim, and from the land of Banayam, Mayam, that's Benjamin, and from the plain, and from the mountains, and from the south, bringing burnt offerings, and sacrifices, and meat offerings, and incense, and bringing sacrifices of praise unto the house of Yahweh. This is what he wants us to do. To worship him on his holy day. Verse 27, but if you will not hearken unto me, to make holy, to hallow, Yawam HaShabath, and not to bear a burden, even entering in at the gates of Yerushalayim on Yawam HaShabath, then will I kindle a fire in the gates thereof, and it shall devour the palaces of Yerushalayim, and it shall not be quenched. And we have seen what happened in the past with our temples. We have no temple anymore. We have no temple. Yasha'oya, book of Isaiah, chapter 56, verse 1. Thus says Yahweh, keep you judgment and do justice, for my salvation is near to come, and my righteousness to be revealed. Blessed is the man that does this, and the son of man that lays hold on it, that keeps HaShabath from polluting it, and keeps his hand from doing any evil. Neither let the son of the stranger that have joined himself to Yahweh speak, saying, Yahweh have utterly separated me from his people. All right? So here's the thing. The son of the stranger will say, well, they're hanging out at your house. Well, I'm not Yahweh. I'm not of any of the tribes. I'm separated from you. So that means that you can keep Shabbat and I can do whatever I want to do. No, it cannot be. You're under my roof. Either you don't come on Shabbat, or if you come, you have to keep Shabbat the way how I'm keeping Shabbat. Neither let the eunuch say, behold, I am a dry tree. For thus say, let's go back to neither let the eunuch say, behold, I am a dry tree. And we know what a eunuch is, right? A eunuch is a person, a man that has been castrated. This is in the time when you have the kings and they have their harems, and these eunuchs were castrated because they were in charge of the harems, and the harems are made up of beautiful women, the wives of the king and the concubines. So he had to castrate the eunuch to make sure that he does not have any ideas, right? He didn't want him to have any ideas because the king had so many wives and concubines. Those women have needs, right? The eunuch, the man who's in charge of the harem, unless he's castrated, will also have needs. But once he's castrated, he have no need. He doesn't have any desires. All right? But the eunuch here is not, and I'm laughing because the Spirit spoke it to me just now. That's why I had to come back to it. The eunuch that he's speaking of in this instant, because there are several kinds of eunuch, and HaMashayach went through them. There are people that have set themselves apart for the purpose of ministry. They don't want to marry. They don't want to have a relationship with the opposite gender. And then there's some that are born that way. Okay? Born with no desire to have a husband or a wife. Okay? Because in a general sense, a woman could be a eunuch. A woman could set herself apart and say, I don't want to get married. I want to dedicate my life to serving the Most High. All right? But this is the story here. Neither let the eunuch say, behold, I'm a dry tree. The eunuch here is one who has restrained himself from having sex on the Sabbath. Is a man. He's not castrated. He have not taken the vow of celibacy. He's not born a eunuch. But this is a person who's married, obviously, because we know we're not supposed to have sex on Shabbat day. So technically, these people are acting as eunuchs, the man and the woman, once they've set themselves apart for the Most High. So he said here, neither let the eunuch, so they considered that when you set yourself apart for the person who's doing it for the pleasure and the glory of the Most High, it's a blessing. But on the other side of the coin, there's always the other side. The person who's doing it because they know they have to do it, but they don't want to do it, but they don't have a choice to do it because they're told they have to do it. So they would proclaim that they're a dry tree. I'm a dry tree. I'm without. I am without. So it's not a good statement. Just like what the stranger is proclaiming, he has utterly separated me from his people, so therefore I can continue doing what I'm used to doing. Here comes the person now. He knows that he's not supposed to be having sex with his wife. And there's a bit of grievance there in his heart because he's proclaiming himself to be a dry tree. I'm a dry tree. So in a way, they're despising the Shabbat. They don't see any reason why they can't go and lie with their wives. Or the stranger can't see why he can't do, go cut his hedge. Go do whatever it is that they do from, the 6 days of the week. So this statement in verse 3 is cautioning us to be careful of how you treat the Shabbat, even in your mind and in your heart. Because if there's a grievance there, because you have to uphold certain or withdraw yourself from certain things, and you're grieved in your heart about it, and you're pouting about it, these are the things that you will say. Oh, I'm a dry tree. Okay, verse 4. For thus says Yahweh unto the eunuchs that keep my Shabbathawath and choose the things that please me and take hold of my covenant. So now he's speaking to the ones that are pleased to do the things that pleases him, to take hold of his covenant. Does Yashraal have eunuchs in our midst? We have two kinds of eunuchs. The ones that purposely withhold themselves and the ones that are born that way. All right? The ones that are born that way, it takes nothing for them to withhold themselves from having sexual intercourse on Shabbat day. Takes nothing for them because they're born not having the desire. But the ones that purposely withhold themselves, they become a eunuch on that day. And the Most High is saying, if you choose the things that pleases me and take hold of my covenant, he said, I will give you a name better than all my children. But that's verse 5. Right? Choose the things that please me and take hold of my covenant. He said, even unto them will I give my house, give in my house and within my walls a place and a name better than of sons and of daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. Why? Because they have withheld themselves. You see, people are not going to understand what this statement is all about. The eunuchs are men that withhold themselves from having sex, having intercourse. Because that is part of the commandment about keeping Shabbat. That's what it's all about. So if you are in a marriage situation and the Shabbat comes upon you, and let me say this, Shabbat is not morning to evening. Shabbat is from evening to evening. You have to go through the night together. If your heart is in the right place, and it takes two as well, He will bless you. And He will cause you to be able to uphold that promise in your heart, that desire, well, not desire, but He will help you to not have that desire on His day, because you've purposed in your heart that you want to keep Shabbat the way how He wants us to keep it. So He takes that desire away. And before you know it, every Shabbat that comes around, you wouldn't even have to think about anything. You don't have to fight against the forces. It just becomes an automatic. Today is Shabbat, a day to celebrate, to feast, and to worship the Most High. And what did He say He will do for those people that have withheld themselves? He will bless them. And not only them, but their whole house. All right. Verse 6. Also the sons of the stranger that joined themselves to Yahweh to serve Him and to love the name of Yahweh, to be His servants. Everyone that keeps HaShabath from polluting it and takes hold of my covenant, even them will I bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices shall be accepted upon my altar. For my house shall be called a house of prayer for all people. We know the Gentiles are going to have a part of our inheritance. And they'll be allowed to come to worship Him. They can't come into His sanctuary. They're shut off forever. No Gentiles will ever come into the sanctuary of the Most High. Only His people. But they must come and bring their offerings. They must come. He will give them a portion of our inheritance. But only if they submit to Him and to us. Yesha'oyah, which is the book of Isaiah chapter 58, starting from verse 13. If you turn away your foot from HaShabath, from doing your pleasure on my holy day, and call HaShabath a delight, the holy of Yahweh, honorable, and shall honor Him, not doing your own ways, nor finding your own pleasure, nor speaking your own words. So you see, He's telling you, this is what I want you to do on Shabbat. I don't want you to be even thinking about your problems on Shabbat. Think only about me. Think about my words. Think about my promises. Think about my covenant. Think about my commandments. Think about my promises that I've made to your forefathers, and hence to you. Verse 14, then shall you delight yourself in Yahweh. Why? Because He will bestow His pleasure upon us. He will put joy in our hearts. That's what I'm saying to the eunuchs, those that have withdrawn themselves. And I'm focusing on them because I know it's the hard thing. I've heard it over and over again. Men and women complaining like, oh, do I have to do that? I don't know if I have the strength to be able to withhold myself. Because that's lust speaking. That's lust operating inwardly. And you got to deal with that. You've got to deal with it. And the way how you learn whether or not you're over lust, you've overcome lust, is when you can withhold yourself on Shabbat and not think about it 1 minute. The more you think about it, the more you want it. And that goes for just about anything. If you tell a child don't stick a fork in a socket, what does the child want to do? The exact thing that you told them not to do it. If you never said anything to that child, the child would pass the socket. I'm talking about the thing in the wall that has electricity. If that child will pass it 1,000,000 times and not think about it. But the minute you give it instruction not to do something, the more it will focus on it and will want to do it. And that's how the devil works. So that's what I'm saying to you. If you're having problems overcoming that desire, because it's showing you that there's an inward problem with lust. And you need to work on that inward problem because it will interfere with your relationship with the Most High. Verse 14, you will go so far and no farther. Because as we travel this path, He will show us and reveal to us the things that are going to hinder us in the future, so that we will not make it to the end. And do you want that? Verse 14. Then shall you delight yourself in Yahweh, and I will cause you to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed you with the heritage of Yaakov, your father. For the mouth of Yahweh has spoken it, He has spoken it, and it shall come to pass. So, these are the list of things to observe according to the scriptures and the Apocrypha. So Yawam HaShabath is a day of rest where no work is to be done on this day. Now here's a list of other things. And many of these things I've covered. That Habanai, the children of Yashrael, must avoid to observe this day as a sacred, holiest of all festivals. No burden can be carried on this day. You can't go and help your friend move house. You want to go shopping. There's not time to go even window shopping. There's not time to do your pleasure. This is a time for you to focus. Remember, we are in a constant spiritual battle. The devil is on a rampage, especially now. And we need now more power and protection than we ever had needed before. He's on a rampage because he knows that his days have grown short. And the Most High is getting ready to regather His people and get them out so that He can bring judgment on this world. And He's trying to restrict us, to restrain us by causing us to transgress the Most High. Because once we transgress, we're out of covenant. And once we're out of covenant, the Most High cannot protect us, neither can He lead us to safety. But once we are in covenant, He will take care of us. And yes, when we were in the churches, we were not in covenant with Him. And He still, to some degree, protected us. Because He knew that we were ignorant of the truth. But now that we've come into the truth and we're still acting like harlots, spiritual harlots, how can He extend His grace all the way over there? Not going to happen. How can he extend his protection all the way over there? Because we've chosen to walk away from him. It's not going to happen. You're out of covenant with him. He cannot protect you. And the devil will find you. No burden to be carried on this day. Look at the book of Jubilees chapter 50. It outlines this in great detail, as well as Nehemiah chapter 13 from verse 15 to 16. No buying or selling. Again, Nehemiah chapter 13 verse 16 to 21. And the book of Jubilees chapter 50 verse 8. No sex allowed on this day. Book of Jubilees chapter 50 verse 8. And allow me to pause here. When you have intercourse with your spouse, who are you glorifying and who are you pleasing? Just think about that for a second. You're not glorifying him, and you're definitely not pleasing him. You're pleasing yourselves. Okay. No excessive traveling, meaning going on long journeys or traveling for vacations. This includes riding a horse, a mule, a camel, ships, boats, or even driving a car or riding a bicycle. Jubilees chapter 50 verse 8. I know there are no bicycles in the book of Jubilees, but I put that in there. Verse 8 and verse 12. No farming of any kind. Jubilees chapter 50 verse 12. Oh, this is my day off. I can go and plant some seed, pick some fruits, some veggies. No farming of any kind. No lighting of fires of any kind. Jubilees chapter 50 verse 12. And fires, yes, some people don't want to light a stove. Some people may go to that extent. I use an electric kettle. I cook the day before and I warm. In fact, when I cook the day before and I have my Shabbat dinner, it's already hot. Because I just finished cooking it before Shabbat started. And when I need to eat dinner again, Shabbat is over. All right? But if you eat dinner earlier, you may not want to eat food that came out of the fridge because it's cold. Now, I don't know what the Spirit, what Ruach HaKadosh tells you in your heart, but I know what He has told me. I can put something in an electric oven. Some people say, well, that's a fire. Well, technically, no. It's heat. Is from a rod. Well, electricity is a fire. So in other words, you will go through the whole night of Shabbat without turning on a light. You're going to turn the switch on, right? If you're going to turn on a switch, you can press a button to turn on a kettle, or press another button to turn on electric oven. And I would say this, I restrict yourself when it comes to cooking. Because sometimes what we do is we'll say, okay, well, we just do a quick something. And it never ever ends up being a quick something, maybe the third time around. Because this is how the devil works. You give him a pinhole and he will increase the size of that pinhole till it's a big gaping hole. So to prevent that from happening, try not to cook on that day. Just reheat your food. Just reheat your food. Have some cheese, some bread, some butter. It's a day to rejoice and to give thanks. Do all your preparation. You can chop up vegetables and stuff like that. Make a salad. You can do all that stuff. Because that stuff is lightweight stuff. But when it comes to cooking, especially your meat dish and your rice and your potatoes and all that's a very intensive job. You can't focus on him while you're doing all of that. Cutting up vegetables is nothing. It takes you like 5 minutes, even less, to cut up a few vegetables. But use your common sense. Use your common sense. But the lighting of fires went all the way back to when people had to go and collect wood and cut up wood to make firewood. No cooking or drawing of water. Jubilees chapter 50 verse 8. And again, use your common sense. Cooking. Some people aren't satisfied with a light meal. So it's better to just cook the day before. Have a really good Shabbat dinner. Usually, if I can find it, I have oatmeal for breakfast. Right? Oatmeal, I just add hot water because it's instant oats. Add my fruit in there, my honey, my coconut chips, my raisins, and I have a hearty breakfast. A very hearty breakfast. Lunch, pita bread with some feta cheese or salad along with it. And then my dinner is usually after Shabbat anyway. All right? And that's just an example. You don't need to have anything elaborate. Keep it simple. It's filling, it's satisfying. Right? Just keep it simple. That's all you need to do. No killing or animals, fish or birds, or no catching of fish or birds, or animals or birds. Why do I have that repeated there? I don't. Okay, Jubilees chapter 50 verse 12. Or no fighting in wars on Yawam HaShabath. Jubilees chapter 50 verse 12. And that's why the HaMashayach said, pray that your flight may not be on Yawam HaShabath, or I think there was another scripture that talks about, there are times in the past when our forefathers were being attacked by the enemy, and they knew that we're not supposed to be doing anything on Shabbat. So they will organize their armies to come against our forefathers on Shabbat, because they knew that we could not pick up arms. So that was what I was recalling. Okay, so let's see what HaMashayach says about Yawam HaShabath, how he viewed it, and still do. Yochanan chapter 7 verse 19. Did not Masha give you the law, and yet none of you keep the law? Why do you go about to kill me? Because part of the law is you shall not kill. But yet these Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scribes were always plotting to kill HaMashayach, because he was always stealing their thunder. They loved the praises of men, but when the men started praising HaMashayach, and when he was exposing them to the people, calling them charlatans and hypocrites, they hated him even more. When he started to reveal the truth to the people, so that the people now were no longer under their darkness, but under his light, they hated him. And that's why they were always plotting to kill him, but they couldn't lay hands on him. No. Not only until the time when he was ready to yield himself to death. Verse 20, the people answered and said, you have a devil. Who goes about to kill you? Verse 21, Yahweh answered and said unto them, I have done one work, and you all marvel. Verse 22, Masha therefore gave unto you circumcision, not because it is of Masha, but of the fathers. And you on Yawam HaShabath circumcise a man. If a man on Yawam HaShabath receives circumcision, that the law of Masha should not be broken, are you angry at me because I have made a man every whit whole on Yawam HaShabath? So they were angry with him because he healed a man. But it is okay for them to go and circumcise a man on Shabbat day because they didn't want to break the law. HaMashayach called it the law of Masha. Speaking of Moses. So in keeping the law of Moses, Masha, they broke Shabbat. And they see no problem with that. But HaMashayach now heals a man, and they want to kill him because they say that he is breaking Shabbat. Verse 24, judge not according to their appearance, but judge righteous judge. Meaning judgment. Meaning if it's okay for you to break Shabbat, to do something according to the law, why is it wrong for him to do something good and break Shabbat? If they had righteous judgment, they would have okayed what HaMashayach did. It would not have been a problem. But these are self-righteous people. The Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes, that were looking for every or anything to trap HaMashayach so that they can kill him. Yochanan chapter 5 verse 1. After this there was a feast of the Jews, and Yahweh went up to Yerushalayim. Now there is at Yerushalayim by the sheep market a pool, which is called in the Hebrew tongue Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of impotent folk, of blind, halt, can't walk, withered, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain season into the pool and troubled the water. Whosoever then first, after the troubling of the water, stepped in was made whole of whatsoever disease he had. And a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. When Yahweh saw him lie and knew that he had been now a long time in that case, he said unto him, Will you be made whole? The impotent man answered him, Sir, I have no man, when the water is troubled, to put me in the pool. But while I am coming, the man is dragging himself to get to the pool so he can get into the water. And the reason why they will be hiding under the porches is because it's hot out there. They don't want to sit out in the sun waiting for the water to be moved. Remember, this is out there where it's pretty hot in this region. So they're sitting under the porches waiting for the water to be troubled, and then they would drag themselves, or if they have help, people could lift them up and bring them into the pool and put them in the pool and be made whole. And this poor man, all right, had no help. He had to be dragging himself, and this has been happening for years because he's 38 years now. 38 years old, right, as this story was given. He had no help. He's dragging himself to get into the pool, and as soon as he gets there, someone gets in before him. And this was repeated over and over and over again for however many years, whether it's 20 years, 25, well, it wouldn't be more than 20 years. Maybe 23 years, maybe from the time he was 15. We don't know how long he's been sitting there waiting for the pool to be troubled. But he's been there for a long time, according to HaMashayach. Right? Well, according to Yochanan, that is. But Yahweh knew that he was there for a long time, and he made a diversion to go see this man. No one else in this area was he interested in but this man. Okay, let's see why. So Yahweh said to him, Rise up, take your bed and walk. And immediately the man was made whole and took up his bed and walked. And on the same day was HaShabath. So he did it on Shabbat. The Jews therefore said unto him, verse 10, that was cured, It is Yawam HaShabath. It is not lawful for you to carry your bed. And when we say bed, we're talking about whatever material that they made to lie upon, usually like a mat. Because they didn't have beds the way how we had beds, with the thick mattress, with the springs and all that stuff. No. It might have been filled with a little wool, but most likely it was a mat. All right? But nevertheless, for them, it was carrying a burden. So they attacked the man. Why are you carrying your bed? Verse 11, he answered them, he that made me whole, the same said unto me, take up your bed and walk. Then answered they him, what man is that who said unto you, take up your bed and walk? We ain't going to go and deal with him. Verse 13, and he that was healed did not know who it was, for HaMashayach had conveyed himself away. He took himself away. Right? He vanished. He used to do that a lot because how many times they were trying to grab hold of him. One time they're trying to throw him over the cliff. And what did he do? He conveyed himself through the people. They couldn't touch him. And the reason why he did that too, a multitude being in that place. Once one person start to say, hey, I'm healed because this man spoke to me or this man touched me, everyone will be coming to him. And he only came to do that one man, to attend to that one man. And he did it for a reason. This man was an object lesson for the people then and for us today. Verse 14, afterward HaMashayach found him, that same man, that impotent man that is now walking, found him in the temple and said unto him, behold, you are made whole, sin no more, lest a worse thing come unto you. So it was sin that made him sick. Sin caused him to be sick these years, all these years. Go and sin no more, lest a worse thing will come upon you. Verse 15, the man departed and told the Jews that it was HaMashayach who made him whole. No, instead of doing the righteous thing and go and rejoicing and maybe give his offering to the priests in the temple, he went back to the Jews to tell them who it was that healed him. He was a gossip monger. He did not learn from his past. He did not learn from what HaMashayach spoke to him. Why did he have to go back and tell the Jews anything? They would not have known that he had another encounter with HaMashayach. But he made sure to go back to report to them who it was. That's why he was halt. That's why he was impotent all those years. Because of this kind of person that he is. And I would not have been surprised if there was another story afterwards that he was made impotent again. Because what he did was a sin. He went and carried the name of HaMashayach to the Jews because he knew that the Jews, he knew that the leaders had a problem with anyone who did anything on Shabbat. And it would have caused problem for anyone, just like it was causing a problem for him. So now he's passing on the problem to HaMashayach, deflecting the problem off himself onto HaMashayach. That's a wicked thing to do. A wicked thing to do, to get him in trouble for after the good that he's done for you for 38 years. Let me go back to that. For 38 years, he had this infirmity. So maybe it was all 38 years that he was sitting there by the pool. I was trying to estimate how long he was sitting on the pool thinking that he was 38 years. But no, he would have to be older than 38 years if he was sitting there by the pool for 38 years. That's a long time to be sitting waiting for the pool to be troubled. And did he learn his lesson? So this is the reason why HaMashayach dealt with him, is to show you the condition of this man's heart. There was nothing good in his heart. He didn't leave the place to give praises to the Most High. He saw him in the temple, yeah. But instead of going to give praises to know that he had an interaction with HaMashayach, he went and carried his name to the leaders, the religious leaders that hated him. That was wickedness. And guess what happened? No surprise. Verse 16, and therefore did the Jews persecute Yahawashawah, and sought to slay him, because he had done these things on Yawam HaShabath. If he hadn't said anything, they wouldn't have known. Verse 17, but Yahawashawah answered them, my Abba, my father, works until now, and I work. All the things that you see me do, even on Shabbat, I do it because my father has instructed me to do it. Only Yahweh can break his own Shabbat. Because when he tells you to break it, it is to do his righteousness. And it's not wrong. But if you're doing it, or you're breaking Shabbat to do your own pleasure, you're defiling his Shabbat. And he said, my father works until now. Who is he working for? He's working on our behalf. Yes, he wants us to be at rest. But at the same time, he is working on our behalf. And he sent his son to work on our behalf. All the things that HaMashayach did when he broke Shabbat was to do good for the people. Verse 18, therefore the Jews sought the more to kill him. These people had murderous hearts. There was no ounce, there was not even one little ounce of mercy in their hearts concerning the people. There were wicked people. Because he had not only broken the Shabbat, but said also that Elohim was his Abba, making himself equal with Elohim. Matthew chapter 12 verse 9, and when he was departed thence, he went into their synagogue, and behold, there was a man who had his hand withered, and they asked him, saying, is it lawful to heal on HaShabbath days, that they might accuse him? You see, they're always trying to trap him. He was the one who gave the law. When Masha went up to the mountain, the Mount Horeb, Mount Sinai, he was the one who wrote the law on the tablets. And yet they want to accuse him and trap him in his own law. How stupid is that? What a foolish people we are to think that we can trap the Most High or his Son in the word that he has given to us. Verse 11, and he said unto them, what man shall there be among you that shall have one sheep, and if it fall into a pit on Yawam HaShabath, will he not lay hold in it and lift it out? All these little things they'll do if they have a little emergency at home. But HaMashayach, to heal a man on that day is a sin. Okay, verse 12. How much more then is a man better than a sheep? Wherefore is it lawful to do well on HaShabbath? He's asking them a question. Is it lawful to do good on HaShabbath? Then said he to the man, stretch forth your hand. And he stretched it forth, and it was restored whole like as the other. Then the Pharisees went out and held a council against him, how they might destroy him. But Yahushua knew it. He withdrew himself from thence, and a great multitude followed him, and he healed them all on Shabbath. Yes, he did. Every single one of them, he healed on Shabbath. Mark chapter 3, verse 1, and this is another version of the story of the same scenario that Mark has written. He entered again into the synagogue, and there was a man there which had a withered hand. And they watched him, whether he would heal him on Yawam HaShabath, that they might accuse him. This is what the devil does. The devil is always watching us to see what we're doing so that he could accuse us before the Father. Although I think at this point in time, he's no longer permitted in the heavens. But he's always watching so that he can use what he can gather, what information he can gather against us. Verse 3, and he said unto the man who had the withered hand, stand forth. And he said unto them, is it lawful to do good on HaShabbath days or to do evil? Is it okay? Is it good? Or do we do evil? To save a life or to kill? But they held their peace. Because if they answered him, it will expose them for who they really are. Religious, wicked men that were the leaders of the day. And whenever he traps them in their own foolishness, they can't say anything. Because if they say yes or no, no matter what the answer is, it will expose them. All right? It will expose them. So they say nothing. They can say nothing. And this is how you have to deal with the devil. And when I say deal with the devil, sometimes the devil comes amongst people, come through people to speak to you, to bring all manner of offense against you. And instead of reacting to their offense, you need to go and find the word. Because when you come to them with a word, it'll shut them up. Every time HaMashayach, they come to him to accuse him or to trap him, he comes back to them with the word. And it shuts them up. Can't say yes, they can't say no, because either answer will expose them. Verse 5, and when he had looked around about on them with anger, being grieved for the hardness of their hearts, he said unto the man, stretch forth your hand. And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored whole as the other. And the Pharisees went forth and straightway took counsel with the Herodians against him, how they might destroy him. That's all they ever wanted to do to our Savior, our Redeemer, our own people. Not only did they destroy the prophets that warned them against the wickedness that they were doing, now the Son, they wanted to destroy the Son. I mean, they did destroy the Son so that they can carry on with their wickedness. Luke chapter 13 verse 5. Luke chapter 13 verse 10. And he was teaching in one of the synagogues on HaShabbath, and behold, there was a woman who had a spirit of infirmity 18 years, and was bowed together, and could in no wise lift herself up. She was bent over for 18 years. That's a long time to be looking at the ground, not being able to look up. Verse 12, and when Yahushua saw her, he called her to him and said unto her, woman, you are loosed from your infirmity. And when he said you are loosed, he's talking, he commanded the spirit of infirmity that had her bound to release her. Verse 13, and he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight and glorified Elohim. She did the right thing compared to that other man. Did he glorify the Most High? No, he picked up his bed and walked, and then he carried word to the enemies of HaMashayach. Verse 14, and the ruler of the synagogue answered with indignation because that Yahweh had healed on Yawam HaShabath, and said unto the people, there are 6 days in which men ought to work. In them therefore come and be healed, and not on Yawam HaShabath. That's part of the law. 6 days you work, but not on the Yawam HaShabath. However, this is about healing the people. This is about doing good. So when we're thinking about the do's and the don'ts of Yawam HaShabath, there's another aspect of the Yawam HaShabath that you have to consider, and this is why HaMashayach came to teach us not to keep it religiously, but to keep it relationally because of the Heavenly Father. He doesn't want us to work because he doesn't want us to be tired. The whole idea is about rest and trusting him to provide for you, even though you're celebrating this day. You may not be able to work on this day. That's okay, because he will provide for you. Remember, he said, if you keep this day, I will bless you. And if you trust him and you do what he says, he will bless you. But there's an exception to the rule. And the exception to the rule is this. It is okay to do good on Yawam HaShabath. It is okay to break Shabbath if you're doing good on his behalf. That is the exception to the rule. Okay. Verse 15. Adawan then answered him, and Adawan is master, and said, you hypocrite, does not each of you on HaShabath loose his ox or his donkey from the stall and lead him away to watering? You see, they don't see that as work. Their donkey needs water. They're not going to carry the water because, that's part of the law. You're not supposed to carry the water, but they loose the donkey. They bring the donkey to the water. But that's still work. Verse 16, and ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, one of your brethren, whom Satan hath bound, lo, these 18 years be loosed from this bond on Yawam HaShabath? A day to rejoice and to give thanks? You want her to wait until the day after? No. The Father, Ha'abba, wants her to praise him right now. He wants her to be able to look up right now. And what he wants, he gets. It's okay for you to lead your donkeys and your ox from the stall to water them, but it's not okay to heal this sister. Your sister. How hypocritical of them. Verse 17, and when he had said these things, all his adversaries were ashamed. And all the people rejoiced for all the glorious things that were done by him. And you know why the people rejoiced? Because they were already under the control of the Roman Empire. But worse yet, they were under the heavy oppression of the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scribes. They were greater in oppressing the people than even the Romans. And they were partners with the Romans, by the way. And the people rejoiced because they heard truth. For the first time, they heard something that brought joy to their hearts. These people, every time they opened their mouth, they made them heavy, oppressed. But now HaMashayach comes, or he came, and he spoke to them, and that burden is taken off of them. That's why they rejoice. Matthew chapter 5 verse 3, but he said unto them, have you not read what the Wads did when he was hungry, and they that were with him? How he entered into the house of Alahayam and did eat the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, neither for them who were with him, but only for the priests. They were hungry, and they had nowhere else to go. So they went to the temple and they got some of the showbread to eat. Do you think the Father wanted them to die out of hunger when there's bread there for them to eat? And did he accuse them when they did that? No. And it's not lawful for anyone to eat that bread because that bread is considered holy. But the Most High, he makes exception to the rules that he makes. He didn't want them to perish, so he allowed them to eat the showbread. Or have you, verse 5, not read in the law that on the Sabbath days the priests in the temple profane HaShabath and are blameless? How did they profane the Sabbath? They killed animals. Remember, you're not supposed to kill animals or fish on Sabbath day. And yet these priests, they did it. And they are blameless. They were blameless. Why? Because they were doing it on behalf of Yahweh. So you have to ask yourself this question. The thing that I want to do, is it going to glorify the Father in the end, or is it going to glorify me? Is it going to please him in the end, or is it going to please me? That's it, the bottom line. But I say unto you, verse 6, that in this place is one greater than the temple. But if you had known what this meant, I will have mercy and not sacrifice. You see, the Father is interested in mercy. He cares little about the sacrifice. We are to be merciful so that we can obtain mercy. If we are not merciful towards one another, how can we receive the mercy from him? He said, I will have mercy and not sacrifice. You would not have condemned the guiltless. These people that are sick in their bodies, that need healing, regardless of whether it's HaShabath or not, and the healing is available for them, you do it. And both parties are guiltless because you're doing good on HaShabath. For the Son of Man is Adawan, master even of HaShabath, because he owns it. It's his. It is his day that he has given to us. And if he came and he broke it doing good, he's teaching us it's okay to do good on HaShabath. But there's another kind of rest that is connected to HaShabath that we are to look forward to in the near future. So now, HaShabath, we're celebrating the seventh day as our holy day of rest and refreshing, because we're looking ahead to a future Shabbat that never ends. Hallelujah. We're looking ahead for the 1,000-year reign of HaMashayach, which will bring us into the 7,000th year which will never end. After that is completed, we will enter into an eternal rest, an eternal Shabbath. Thapalad 95 verse 1. Oh, come, let us sing unto Yahweh. Let us make a joyful noise to the rock of our salvation. Let us come before his presence with thanksgiving and make a joyful noise unto him with Thapalawath psalms. For Yahweh is a great Alahayam and a great Malach, king above all gods. In his hand are the deep places of the earth, and the strength of the hills is his also. The sea is his, and he made it, and his hands formed the dry land. You see, these are the things that we need to reflect upon on Shabbath. All the great things that he has done, and the greater things that he will do in the future. Oh, come, let us worship and bow down. This is verse 6. Let us kneel before Yahweh, O Shana, our Maker. For he is Alahayana, our Alahayam, and we are the people of his pasture. We are the sheep of his hand. Today, if you will hear his voice, we're talking about today. Harden not your heart as in the provocation and as in the day of temptation in the wilderness. When your fathers tempted me, proved me, and saw my work. 40 years long was I grieved with this generation, and said, it is a people that do err in their heart, and they have not known my ways. Unto whom I swear in my wrath, I swore in my wrath, that they should not enter into my rest. And what is the rest? The final, oh shit, let me rephrase that. The ending of the age and the beginning of the new. His rest starts with the 1,000-year reign of HaMashayach and continues onward from there. The ending of the age and the beginning of the new. That is his rest. And what did he swear in his wrath? That they will not enter into his rest, meaning they will not have eternal life. They're all dead. Our forefathers are dead, and they will not be raised again, except for the white throne judgment, where they'll be cast into utter darkness, along with many of us today. Many of our people are going to end up in the lake of fire, because they are perpetually breaking his laws and making excuses for themselves. They have no problem with it. They have no problem until it becomes a problem, but it'll be too late. Oberai, book of Hebrew, chapter 3, verse 7. Wherefore, as Ruach HaKadosh says, today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts as in the provocation, in the day of temptation, in the wilderness, when your fathers tempted me, proved me, and saw my works 40 years. We have not seen anything of what our forefathers have seen, and yet we believe. And it's accredited to us if we believe as righteousness. If we continue to believe, even though we do not see the evidence of it, but we know without shadow of doubt that it is what it is. When we hold on to that by faith, believing in Yahweh, it is accredited to us as righteousness. But our forefathers lacked faith. So no matter what the Most High did for them, all the miracles that he did for them, they could not believe. So they will perish. In fact, they have perished, and many more after them. Verse 10, wherefore I was grieved with that generation and said, you do always err in their heart. They do always err in their heart. That err, that's sin. And they have not known my ways. That's how it is with people today. They claim that they know him, but they don't even know his name. How can you possibly know the Most High if you don't know his name? And we don't need to go any further than that, because if you don't know his name, you don't know him and you will not know his ways. All the things that you're spouting are things that you've heard from other people, and even the devil himself is teaching you. You got to start from base, ground zero, base. And what's the base? To know his name and his titles. And then you work, you build from there. I know as I was learning and I was going through all the different names and he was teaching me, a lot of the things that I learned had to be revamped, because the element of knowing who he is and his name, based on his name, was not there. Yes, I had a picture, or he gave me a series of pictures, but there was a lot of things in the picture that were wrong, and I couldn't see it. That's why I keep saying to you, and I've said before, that a lot of these lessons I've been sitting upon for many years. And with as time went by, and the more my knowledge grew, and I look back at these studies, I had to tap my hands like, where did I get that from? Because based on the word, it doesn't connect. And that's why you have to be careful with who you're listening to. But you see, I was calling on the wrong name. It's only in the last few years when I came into the full knowledge of who he is, starting with his name, then the knowledge of who he is and his ways came afterwards. We only knew what we were taught by the leaders in the churches. And they taught based on the idols that they're worshiping. Yes, they used the Bible, but everything in the Bible was attributed to their gods. So the understanding of their gods were given to us. And we're still sifting through that, or trying to apply a little bit of what we learned from them, even as Yashrael. But we need to cast all that away, because there's nothing good in any of the things that they've taught us. And when I finally tossed all of that away and had a clean slate, just like that, he started giving it to me. Blup, 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 blup. And it all connects. That's the thing. It all connects with the scriptures. All the other things, it was like, this person said this and they believe that. This is nothing about believing. This is about what he says. And whether you believe it is up to you. It's up to me. And that's the error that's in our hearts if we don't get rid of it, to take that idol or those idols out of our hearts. And those idols have names like Jesus Christ and Lord and God. And Yeshua and Yeshua and Yahuwah and Yahweh. Those are idols in our hearts. So that's the error. The error in our hearts. If you keep them there. Because you're attributing what is meant for Yahweh, you're giving it to them. And you will never know his ways as long as you keep giving his glory to another. Verse 11, so I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter into my rest. And this is the end story. If you continue to give his glory unto another, and you fail to keep his commandments, you will not enter into his rest. You will perish and end up in the lake of fire. He said it here. These are not my words. This is what he's saying. Verse 12, take heed, brethren, lest there be in any of you an evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living HaMashayach, but exhort one another daily while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. For we are made partakers of HaMashayach, if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast unto the end. So everything that was given to us, we hold on to it and ride through the storms, holding on to it with all our might until we come to the end, when we are actually saved now. We were taught that once we say the sinner's prayer, we're saved. But you're not saved yet. Saved from what? You got to know, endure. And when you endure and you make it to the end, you enter into the kingdom of heaven. And those doors are closed. Know you're saved. And I'm speaking primarily of the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom, once they enter into their land again, the land of Yasha'al, they're saved. But as we're still living under this system, we will never be saved. And although the northern kingdom will be in their land, they will no longer be under the system. They'll be completely protected, covered and surrounded by his glory. So they will not be in the system or under the system anymore, and saved from the judgments. Okay. For verse 15, while it is said today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts, as in the provocation. Do not harden your hearts when he is provoking you to righteousness. When he's provoking you to think on these things and consider you could be wrong. That's him speaking. You're doing wrong. You're disobeying him. Do not harden your heart against that. That's how the Spirit works. He brings conviction to provoke you to righteousness. And it's up to you to receive that conviction. Because if you do, he will lead you to repentance. Then he will teach you the correct thing. And now you're back on the path. But right now the devil is dragging you off the path onto his Broadway because he wants you to go down to hell with him. He's dragging a whole bunch of people along with him. Verse 16. For some, when they had heard, did provoke. Howbeit, not all that came out of Matzorayim by Masha. And we know there were 2 out of the 10 spies that went to spy the promised land. Only 2 came back with a good report. The other 10 came back with a negative report, which made Alahayam very angry, and he sent them back into the wilderness to die, with the exception of these 2 and their families. And that's Caleb and Joshua, Yahweh and Caleb. Verse 17. But with whom was he grieved 40 years? Was it not with them that had sinned, whose carcasses fell in the wilderness? That's why he sent them back into the wilderness, to kill them off there. Over the 40 years, he killed them off. Verse 18. But to whom swore he that they should not enter into his rest, but to them that believed not? And the same thing goes for us today. If you do not believe in HaMashayach and walk in his commandments, including the Sabbath day, you will not enter into his rest. You will not have eternal life, in other words. Verse 19. So we see that they could not enter in because of unbelief. And the reason why they were unbelieving is because they had idolatry in their hearts, and at every opportunity they broke his commandments. And the worst of it all was when he sent them to go into the promised land, and he sent the 12 spies to spy out the land, to show them how good the land is, knowing full well that he always went before them, and he protected them from the armies of Mitzrayim, which is Egypt. How much more will he not have protected them against these giants in their land? But the 10 came back and said, nah, we're like grasshoppers. Even though they brought back evidence of the land and how good it is, they had to carry a bunch of grapes between two men. That's how big the grapes were. And then the 2 said, yeah, but the Most High, he said that it's our land. And if he said that, then it meant that he will go ahead of us and take care of these giants. But they didn't believe. They started complaining, as they usually in those days. They usually complained. And what they said, it would have been better if they stayed in Mitzrayim, rather than to go into a place to be killed and their children be killed. And that was the final straw for them. The Most High said, that's it. Send them back into the wilderness. And that's when they changed their minds. No. We changed our minds. We want to go now. And the Most High said, it's too late. You see, they always wanted to do things on their terms, never on the Most High terms. It must always be on their terms. And that's how our brethren are today. Everything that they do and believe in must be on their terms, not on the terms of the Most High, not on his conditions, nothing. It has to do everything with them, about them, and for them. And that's why they will not enter in, because they too are unbelieving. When you do not believe in the Most High and obey his commandments, you become an unbeliever. Oberai, Hebrew, chapter 4, verse 1. Let us therefore fear, lest a promise being left us of entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it. For unto us was the gospel preached, as well as unto them. But the word preached did not profit them, being mixed with faith in them that heard it. Our forefathers did not have faith. Then we are in danger of the same thing. For we which have believed, or we who have believed, do enter into rest. As he said, as I've sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. For he spoke in a certain place of the 7th day on this wise. So this rest that he's speaking about is the millennial age and after. The perpetual Shabbat that is coming. And Allah did rest the 7th day from all his works. Still verse 4, but now verse 5. And in this place again, if they shall enter into my rest. Seeing therefore it remains that some must enter therein, and they to whom it was first preached entered not in because of unbelief. Our forefathers did not make it. No, I'm not talking about all our forefathers. Obviously the righteous ones made it. I'm talking about the ones that were in the wilderness, the rebellious ones. We know Masha made it because he appeared on the Mount of Transfiguration, and Aliyah and Hanawah, all those ones, they made it. But the rebellious ones that were constantly complaining, Abraham, Korah, Dathan, all the different ones, the 250 princes that offered up the strange fire, all those ones, that the 10 spies that said no, They did not make it into his rest. Okay. Verse 7. Again, he limits a certain day, saying in Dawah, today, after so long a time, as it is said, today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts. For if HaMashayach had given them rest, then would he not afterward have spoken of another day? And HaMashayach, yes, he said, come unto me, you that are heavily laden, and I shall give you rest. But he's not talking about Shabbat rest. Okay? He's not talking about that rest yet, because HaMashayach will come and fulfill the Shabbat at the end of the age. During the 1,000-year reign, we will have rest, and after that, once the earth is renewed, the heavens are renewed, and New Jerusalem comes down from the heavens, then we will be living in a perpetual rest. Then it means that he has fulfilled that rest for us during his 1,000-year reign. Okay? And then we will be living in that perpetual rest. So he did not give them rest, and he have not given us rest as yet. We are working towards that rest when we believe in him and we obey him. When we keep Shabbat in anticipation of the eternal rest that is coming to us. All right? Verse 9. There remains therefore a rest to the people of Elohim. There's a rest coming, guys. Verse 10. For he that is entered into his rest, he also has ceased from his own works, as Elohim did from his. You don't need to do anything except believe and obey. You don't have to go and build anything, create anything. You don't have to do anything except to believe and obey. Verse 10, let us labor therefore to enter into that rest, lest any man fall after the same example of unbelief. So if we do not work towards it, it's not going to happen. We're fighting spiritual warfare to prevent us from believing. That's why there are doctrines out there telling you not to believe in HaMashayach and the work he did on the stake. Denying him, denying Ruach HaKadosh, denying the word. These things are out there right now to hinder you from entering into the rest. Telling you, you don't need to celebrate Shabbat. You gotta work. You have, when the wilderness comes, you have that time to catch up. No, it's not going to happen for you. Only for the northern kingdom. This rest of Elohim that we are commanded to keep is for us to keep two things in mind. It is Yahweh's day where we worship him and him alone. Not ourselves, not our jobs, to worship him. And it is a day to look forward to when we will have eternal rest with him. If we can't learn to rest right now, how will you be able to rest eternally with him? Well, you're not going to be able to do it because you just wouldn't make it. But the point is, if you cannot appreciate and love Shabbat and do the things that you're supposed to do, and I give you both sides, right? The law, I give it to you according to the law and according to HaMashayach, so that you will have a balance, all right? There's some people that don't have a balance. But remember, as long as what you're doing or he has instructed you to do is glorifying him, and it causes you to break Shabbat, don't feel bad about it. Glorify the Father because you've done good. Shopping is not doing good because it glorifies you. But if you have a friend in need and you have to break Shabbat to help that friend because they are in need, whether it's life or death or just a need, the Father will not fault you for breaking Shabbat. You got to use your common sense. But as it is, and the saying goes, common sense is not common these days. Okay? So that's the ending of part 5 of this wonderful, wonderful series. And it's quite thorough to help us to understand how important Shabbat is, because it's not just for us from week to week or from year to year, because we have the yearly Shabbats in the feast days, but we have a Shabbat that is coming, that eternal rest that is coming, where we will live in peace and tranquility and with great joy with the Most High forevermore. There'll be no more sin, no more shame, no more tears, no more fears. Nothing that is evil will be there. Just pure love, joy, peace. All the things that is of Him will be there. And this is something that we need to work towards. We have to keep working at learning about the things that He has given to us, but were taken away. Right? We have to relearn how to worship Him. We have to relearn how to praise Him. We have to relearn His name. But once we start on that path, His Ruach HaKodesh will continuously feed us the truth. And as long as you embrace the truth, even though it may be hard to embrace, but once you learn to love the truth, even though it convicts you, know that He is only provoking you to righteousness. So embrace it. Let Him do His work. And His work is to come into our hearts, to get rid of all those idols that are in there, to prune us, to open up all the tombs with dead bones in there, dead issues that need to come out, so that He can clean it up and reside in there, bring the light in. And the more light that we have in our hearts, the less the devil has a hold on us, and the more we have, the better chance we have to keep on the path, the straight and narrow path, to make it to the very end. But it starts with us first, and our desires, and what we plan to do, intend to do, and purpose our hearts to do. So this is the end of part 5, and as usual, I will wish you shalom, shalom. May the Most High bless you and keep you, and may He cause His face to shine upon you. May He be gracious upon you. May He bestow upon you bountifully His shalom. So shalom, shalom.